For a lot of Canadian and American TV watchers of the late 60s, this movie was one of the first he saw on network television back in the day. And for some reason, it was expanded for broadcast on NBC. So today we're going to be talking about, a scary movie, The Evil of Frankenstein. Now, this Hammer film, directed by Freddie Francis, was the third installment in Hammer's Frankenstein series, starring Cushing, Sandra Ellis, and Kiwi Kingston. Screenplay by Anthony Hines, who also produced. Cinematography by John Wilcox. Edited by James Needs. Music by Don Banks. Distributed by Rank in the UK and Universal worldwide. Came out in April in London and May in the UK in '64 at a budget of 130,000, and all the budgets on the screen. Now, the title of the poster said "Shock, Shock, Shock." A child witnesses an intruder steal a corpse of one of her recently deceased relatives. Terrified, she flees from the cabin where she was hiding and encounters Baron Victor Frankenstein. As the body snatcher takes the corpse to Frankenstein's secret lab, a local priest discovers the theft. The child identifies as both the body snatcher and his employer. Forced to leave town and flee, Frankenstein and his beloved assistant Hans return to the Baron's hometown of Karlstad, where he planned to sell valuables from the abandoned Frankenstein chateau to fund new work. Arriving in the village, they rescue a deaf-mute young woman from being harassed by a gang of thugs. Arriving at the chateau, they find all the valuables stolen and flee. Now, the following day, Frankenstein and Hans blend in with a local carnival in order to remain incognito. While visiting a local pub, Frankenstein notices the local burgomaster is wearing one of his valuables, a ring. Frankenstein causes a scene, is immediately recognized by the authorities, and flees once again, eventually hiding at the exhibit of a hypnotist named Zoltan. No connection with the SCTV Zoltan. Now, Zoltan clashes with the police and is arrested, covering the escape of Frankenstein and Hans. Later that evening, Frankenstein and Hans break into Burgermeister's apartments to retrieve the valuables, but the police arrive. They flee once again and encounter the deaf-mute girl. She leads them to her shelter in the cave. Now, Frankenstein finds his original creation frozen in ice in the cave. He and Hans build a fire to melt the ice and free the creature. Disbelief on this. It kind of didn't work in process, but you see where I'm coming from. A low budget. They take it to chateau and restore it to life. However, the creature's brain is unresponsive. Frankenstein, desperate to restore active consciousness to his creation, comes up with the idea of obtaining the services of Zoltan to reanimate the creature's mind. Zoltan has been banished from Karlstad for not having a license to perform. After clever psychological manipulation by Frankenstein, he agrees to the task. Now, Zoltan is successful, but has less than scientific interests at heart. With the creature responding only to his commands, Zoltan uses it to rob and take revenge upon the town's authorities. Frankenstein evicts Zoltan, who then instructs the creature to kill Frankenstein, but the creature kills Zoltan instead. The creature goes in a fit of rage and accidentally sets the lab on fire. That's a big trope in most Frankenstein movies. Hans escapes with the girl, and the couple watch as smoke pours from the chateau in a look-back scene that's just cliche like crazy. We'll talk about the reviews, why they didn't like that scene. A massive explosion ensues, causing the section where the lab was to topple over a cliff, killing Frankenstein and the creature. Now, the script for the film by Anthony Hines was based on a story synopsis that Peter Bryan submitted in May '58 for the aborted Tales of Frankenstein TV series. Now, the film breaks heavily from tradition and the continue of the preceding film, The Revenge of Frankenstein. Dennis Mikely described the break. Any pretext of a connection to Revenge of Frankenstein is suspense within a brazen display of contempt for continuity. A flashback creates a prior history that is wholly unrelated to the Last Sanctuary script and instead plundered from Universal Frankenstein meets the Wolfman. Now, Kiwi Kingston, of course, played the Frankenstein monster. Bad presentation. I didn't like it. Now, the film was in production from October 14 to 16 November 63 at Bray Studios in Windsor, Berkshire, and on location at Black Park Country Park and Wexing, Buckinghamshire. The film was made during Hammer's 6-year co-production pact with Columbia. This led to the company to make a few productions a year with Universal, with The Evil of Frankenstein being the only film that Hammer made that was financed by Universal in 1963. So basically, the rights to the character were being shared by Hammer and Universal, and Hammer was allowed to do something in the Universal genre. Now, this film's version of the monster is noted for resembling the one in Universal Pictures' original Frankenstein series of the 30s and 40s, including the distinctive laboratory sets, as well as the flat-headed look of Jack Pierce monster makeup for Boris Karloff that had been designed specifically for the actor. Earlier Frankenstein films by Hammer had studiously avoided such similarities for copyright reasons. However, a new film distribution deal had been made between Hammer and Universal. As a result, Hammer had free rein to duplicate makeup and set elements. Now, additional scenes for American television were filmed on 14 January 1966 at Universal, adding a new subplot featuring Stephen Garay, Maria Palmer, and William Phipps, who had not appeared in the original version. Now, again, Evil of Frankenstein, April 1964, the New Victoria Theatre, the premiere. It received a general release in the country on May 31st and May 8th in the US 64. Now, the film, like I said, was shown on ABC in the States and simulcast in Canada as part of the NBC Saturday Night of the Movies on January 2nd, 1968, with 2 additional scenes, extending the running time to 97 minutes. Now, from contemporary reviews, Howard Thompson, New York Times, wrote, for the first half, the latest Frankenstein go-around was a succinct pull and a curious dignity. The picture begins to say something about superstition and hypocrisy, then it simply goes off the rails and hog wild as the monster gets drunk and heads for the ash heap. Variety gave the film a lukewarm review, writing that the direction was deft enough for the most preposterous patches and that there was always something going on, but that the dialogue sometimes provoked unintended laughter and that some of the supporting cast tend to ham it up to make believe's detriment. The Monthly Film Bulletin wrote that the monster made a welcome return, true tradition, in a close approximation of Boris Karloff's celebrated makeup, and that the Baron's lab equipment was as photogenic as ever, but that the film was sadly tatty in all other respects, concluding, saddled with an uninspiring cast and a Bavarian village so stagey that the villagers rhubarbing away into their oldie German beer mugs seem almost real by comparison. Freddie Francis finds it going too uphill by half. Now, from retrospective reviews, All Movies review of the film was mixed and negative, calling it dismal and the worst of Hammer Films' Frankenstein series. As of June 2020, the film has an average critics' approval of 57% on Rotten Tomatoes. But here's the deal, ladies and gentlemen. If you never saw Hammer movies before, and that NBC broadcast, which was for a lot of people the first time you saw a Hammer movie, it was just like going to the theaters. NBC provided a good service. The movie is flawed, but again, is entertaining. When you have Peter Cushing in an evil role and the Frankenstein motif, Cushing is always believable as Dr. Frankenstein. That alone is worth 2 stars. I wouldn't give the movie any more than 2.5 stars because then again, you need better acting. But this is kind of weird. No Cushing, you have no movie. Cushing in the movie is worth 2 stars alone. If Christopher Lee played a non-monster role, to me, that would have put him over the top. But again, it's like I said before, it's the title. The title tries selling the movie, The Evil of Frankenstein. It's like, see The Evil of Frankenstein at your local theater this weekend. Be chill. Like I said, it's all about hype. And these were roadshow pictures as well. The more people that would get interested in the title will go see the movie. Once they got your money, once you're inside, there's no refunds. It is what it is. So, ladies and gentlemen, with this movie, you know what you're getting. It's one of the most, unheralded Hammer movies, but still has a dignity all its own. If you like what we're doing here, give us a like, comment, subscribe, or share. Bye.